In 1956, a barber in Knoxville, Tennessee, cut the hair of nearly every man and boy in his end of town, and in 40 years behind the chair he was, by common agreement, the most gentlemanly man any of them ever knew. He was not rich. A barber's wage, $1 a cut, his own floor swept at night. But grown men who had sat in his chair as boys spent their lives trying to be like him, to stand the way he stood, greet a man the way he greeted one, treat a room the way he treated his shop. He lived by a set of habits so ordinary in his day that no one remarked on them, and so rare in ours that a man who did even half of them now would stand out in any room in America. And the one habit underneath all the rest, the one his own old master taught him before he ever earned his chair, is number one. He was not unusual. In that Knoxville and in every town in America, there was a man like him, a barber, a druggist, a school teacher, a foreman who carried himself with a quiet courtesy that shaped everyone around him. These were not the manners of the rich. They were the common inheritance of ordinary men, small habits of decency practiced so widely a boy simply absorbed them. Then we decided manners were stiff, formality fake, and putting other people first a kind of self-erasure. We threw the whole inheritance out in the name of being ourselves, and now a man who merely stands when a woman enters looks like a visitor from another century. We did not outgrow these habits. We forgot them and called the forgetting freedom. Number 22 he did with a pen and a 2-cent stamp, and people kept what he sent for 30 years. Number 4 is the truest test of a man there is, and he passed it every day without thinking about it. And number 1, the single habit beneath the whole list, the one his old master handed him before he'd cut a single head of hair. The reason grown men still measured themselves against a small-town barber: costs nothing, and almost no one does it anymore. Stay with him to the end. These were not stiff rules of etiquette, and they were not a performance of class. They were the opposite of performance, the small, unglamorous machinery of making the people around you comfortable, valued, and at ease. That is the difference between a man with polished manners and a man everyone is glad to be near. Every habits on this list, that Knoxville barber lived by heart, in a shop where every man in town came to sit in his chair. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 gentleman habits from the 1950s that would make any man stand out today. Number 25. He was clean-shaven and pressed every day. Every morning he shaved close, pressed his shirt, and put on a clean white barber's coat, whether the day held 1 customer or 40. You take 5 minutes to be put together before anyone sees you, because how you show up is the first thing you say. A pharmacist in Roanoke in 1955 stood behind his counter in a pressed coat and tie every single day. The Knoxville barber was immaculate on a barber's wage, because a man careful with himself is trusted to be careful with everything else. It cost him 5 minutes. It bought a lifetime of respect. Number 24, he took his hat off indoors, through a doorway into the shop, at a table in an elevator with a lady. The hat came off. One motion, no thought. You remove your hat the instant you cross a threshold, because a covered head indoors says a man has not noticed where he is. Across the towns of that era, boys were drilled in it until grown men did it in their sleep. The Knoxville barber's hat came off before he was fully through his own door, because the hat was a small daily way of saying, I know where I am and I respect it. The gesture was tiny. Its absence today is deafening. Number 23. He dressed a notch up, even for nothing. For a Tuesday, for an errand, for church or the hardware store, He dressed 1 degree better than the day required. You put in a little more care than the occasion demands, because a man who dresses like the day matters makes the people around him feel it does. A school teacher in Lexington in 1956 wore a coat and tie to teach 10-year-olds every day of his life. The Knoxville barber never left the house looking careless, because how a man dresses is a message he sends before he speaks. He was never overdressed. He was simply never indifferent. Number 22. He wrote thank you notes by hand, a few lines in real ink in his own careful hand for a kindness, a gift, a favor dropped in a real mailbox. You write the note instead of merely thinking the thought, because gratitude unspoken helps no one, and gratitude in ink lasts. An insurance man in Hartford in 1954 wrote 5 notes every morning before he did anything else. The Knoxville barber kept a drawer of plain cards and a fountain pen, and people found his notes in their drawers years later and could not throw them away. This is number 22. A spoken thanks is gone by supper. A written one outlives the man. Number 21. He held the door and let others through first. Man, woman, or child, young or old, he reached the door first and held it, and he went through last. You get to the door ahead of people and hold it, because you go first always is a small daily gift that costs a second. A hotel man in Memphis in 1955 held the door for 400 guests a day and never tired of it. The Knoxville barber held his shop door for every soul who came and went, because a held door tells a person you saw them and thought of them before yourself. It reads, plainly, after you. Number 20. He rose. When a woman or an elder entered, when a lady came into the shop or an old man shuffled in, he was on his feet before he thought about it, offering the good chair. You stand when someone deserving of respect enters, because rising says your arrival matters enough to interrupt me. A judge in Montgomery in 1956 rose for every woman who entered his chambers for 30 years. The Knoxville barber stood for the grandmothers and the veterans who came in, because a man who rises for another tells the whole room he was raised right. A woman is not made small by a man who stands. She is told she is worth standing for.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a good name and good manners mean something. It's the lost gentleman's code, the old-fashioned manners American gentlemen once lived by, the kind that make you the man everyone respects, welcome in any room you walk into. But these ways are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. I've put together 2 books for you, plus a free bonus. Don't spend another year being the man people overlook. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait.
Number 19. He walked on the street side. Escorting anyone down a sidewalk, he drifted to the curbside without a word, his own body between them and the traffic. You move to the street side every time, so the person you are with is always on the inside. It came down from an older world of splashing carriages and runaway wagons, but what it said had nothing to do with mud. The Knoxville barber did it walking his wife to church and his customers to their cars, because it said, I will take the hit before you do. A person rarely notices the gesture. They always notice its absence. Number 18. He carried the heavy thing and gave up his seat. The armful of groceries, the heavy case, the last seat on a crowded bench, he took the burden and gave up the comfort before anyone asked. You reach for the heavy thing and offer the better seat, quietly, as a matter of course. A conductor in Richmond in 1955 gave his own stool to every tired mother who boarded. The Knoxville barber carried old men's parcels to their cars and stood so others could sit, because a gentleman arranges the world so the weaker person bears the lighter load. The strength was ordinary. Spending it on someone else was the point. "Here is the trade we made," said plainly. Every habit on this list asks the same small thing of a man, that he think for one moment of the person in front of him before himself, the door, the chair, the note, the check, the clean word. That is 100 tiny surrenders of his own convenience every day, for no reward but the comfort of others. And we decided we were done with it. We called the courtesy stiff, the formality fake, and the deference to others a kind of weakness. We taught a whole generation that the highest good was to express yourself, and the old habits, which were all about the other person, quietly died. We did not become freer. We became a room full of people expressing themselves and no one at ease, and into that room a man with these old habits walks like a warm light into a cold house. Number 17. He said please and thank you like he meant them. Not as reflex, not as filler, but as real words aimed at a real person, the boy sweeping up, the man in the chair, the woman at the register. You say the small courtesies and mean them because please and thank you are how a man tells the people around him they are not invisible. A grocer in Des Moines in 1956 thanked every customer by name as a matter of principle. The Knoxville barber thanked the shoeshine boy as sincerely as the banker, because courtesy spent only on important people is not courtesy but strategy. The words were small, the respect in them was not. Number 16. He was always early. He opened the shop before he said he would and arrived early to everything else, because making a man wait was a way of saying his time was worth less. You treat the hour you gave someone as a promise you keep. A foreman in Toledo in 1954 was never once late to a shift in 30 years. The Knoxville barber unlocked his door 15 minutes early every morning of his working life, because being on time told the world he took it, and them, seriously. Punctuality does not sound like a gentleman's habit. It is one, respect you can set a clock by. Number 15. He kept every promise, however small. If he said he'd have a boy's first straight razor shave ready for his 16th birthday, it was ready, and the tiny promises got the same iron as the large. You treat a small commitment as a real one, because a man's word is proven in the things no one would blame him for forgetting. A milkman in Scranton in 1955 never missed a delivery in 19 years, in any weather. The Knoxville barber was the man whose word needed no reminder, which in a world of nearly kept promises made him close to unique. Big promises are easy. He kept the small ones, which is where trust is made. Number 14. He never complained in public. Whatever ached, whatever the week had cost him, he did not carry it into the shop and hand it to everyone who walked in. You keep the grumbling to yourself, because complaint is a fog a man drags into every room he enters. A conductor in Omaha in 1956 worked double shifts for years and never once said a sour word about it. The Knoxville barber met each man in his chair with an easy face, because a man who does not complain lifts a room simply by walking into it. The troubles were real. He just refused to make them everyone's weather. Number 13. He owned his mistakes plainly. When he nicked a chin or botched a part, he said so at once. I did that, I'm sorry, let me make it right, with no excuse trailing behind. You say the plain words and stop, because a man who owns his error grows, and a man who hides it shrinks. A shop owner in Peoria in 1956 refunded a customer for his own mistake before the man could even complain. The Knoxville barber never once blamed the clippers or the light, because owning a small failure, honestly, is how a man proves he can be trusted with a large one. The mistake was human. The owning of it was character. Number 12. He never cursed in mixed company. Around women, children, or strangers, his speech stayed clean and level, whatever the provocation. You mind your tongue in front of others, because how a man speaks is worn as plainly as what he wears. A deacon in Charleston in 1955 could run a whole shop floor without a single coarse word. The Knoxville barber kept his language plain and decent in a shop full of men who did not always bother, because clean speech is a quiet discipline that tells a room a man governs himself. The vocabulary was simple. The self-command behind it was the gentleman. Number 11. He asked about you before he spoke of himself. A man sat down and the first words were about that man, his family, his work, his week, not the barber's own. You lead with them, not you, because the fastest way to a person's regard is genuine interest in them. A doctor in Providence in 1955 asked every patient about their life before their symptoms. The Knoxville barber knew every customer's children by name and asked after them by name, because a man who is curious about you is a rare gift, and people never forget receiving it. Anyone can talk about himself. He led by asking about you. Number 10. He remembered your name and your story. He held a man's name, his wife's name, the surgery he'd mentioned a year ago, the boy who'd shipped out, and he brought them back up. You carry the details people hand you and return them later, because to remember a man's life is to tell him it registered. A druggist in Memphis in 1954 kept his customers' troubles in a little book and studied it. The Knoxville barber kept his in his head across 40 years and 1,000 men, because being remembered is being told you mattered. Everyone can ask how you are. He remembered your answer. Number 9. He introduced people and left no one standing alone. When two men who didn't know each other were in his shop, he introduced them, and he never let a stranger stand unspoken to. You make the introduction and fold the newcomer in, because a room where no one is left alone is a room a gentleman built. A club steward in Baltimore in 1957 never let a guest stand by himself for more than a minute. The Knoxville barber turned his shop into a place where strangers became neighbors, because the mark of a gentleman is that no one near him feels invisible or out of place. This is number 9. And it is why his shop was the warmest room in town. Here is the part of his story we skipped. He did not start out a gentleman. As a young man learning the trade, he was a fine technical barber, a clean part, a sharp neckline, the best cuts in the shop, and his chair sat empty while the old master's stayed full. It galled him because his work was plainly better. And one slow afternoon, the old man who owned the shop, who had apprenticed him and would one day hand him the chair, told him the thing that changed his life. "Son," he said, "no man walks in here for the haircut. He walks in to be treated for 20 minutes like he is somebody. Give the finest cut in Tennessee to a man who feels like furniture, and he never comes back. Give an ordinary cut to a man you have made feel like a king, and he will drive past 3 shops to sit in your chair." And the young barber, stung, tried it, stopped working on heads, and started tending to men. And inside a year, his was the full chair. He spent the next 40 years making every soul who sat down feel like somebody, and it made him the most beloved man in town. And what the old master taught him is still coming. It is number 1. Number 8. He praised in public and corrected in private. He bragged on a man where others could hear it, and when someone needed setting straight, he did it quietly, off to the side, where no one could watch. You praise loud and correct soft, because public praise builds a man, and public correction breaks one. A plant superintendent in Milwaukee in 1955 never once dressed a man down on the floor. The Knoxville barber would tell the whole shop when the apprentice did well, and take him aside alone when he didn't, because a man humiliated in front of others learns to hide, not to grow. He never once got that backward. Number 7, he kept a confidence. What a man told him in that chair, a failing marriage, a lost job, a private fear, went into him and never came out. You become the vault and stay the vault, even when the secret would make a good story. A small-town banker in Lincoln in 1954 knew every family's troubles and carried them silently to his grave. The Knoxville barber heard everything, because the barber's chair is a kind of confessional, and he never once betrayed it, which is exactly why men told him, "A vault gets everything, because a vault gives nothing back." His discretion was the ground his whole shop stood on. Number 6, he picked up the check without a word. At the diner counter, over coffee, he reached for the tab before anyone else's hand left the table. Quietly, no show of it. You reach for the check first, without ceremony, because generosity announced is not generosity. A restaurateur in New Orleans in 1957 taught his sons that a generous man is remembered and a cheap one is remembered longer. The Knoxville barber bought coffee for young men who earned a third of what he did and waved off every offer to split it because he remembered being the one who could not afford to reach. The dollars were few. The reaching was the whole thing. Number 5, he gave one real specific compliment. Not scattered flattery, but one true particular thing that is a fine-looking boy you're raising, that was a brave thing you did, said, and meant. You give the specific compliment because the exact real one lands and the vague false one bounces off. A teacher in Baton Rouge in 1956 could find the one true good thing in any child and name it. The Knoxville barber noticed the thing a man was quietly proud of and said it plainly, because a person can tell in an instant whether you actually saw them. Flattery is cheap and obvious. He dealt only in the true kind. Number 4, he was kind to those who could do nothing for him. The shoeshine boy, the town drunk, the stranger passing through, the child with no dime, he gave them the same warmth he gave the mayor. You treat the people who cannot help you exactly as you treat the ones who can, because that, more than anything, is where a man's real character shows. A bank president in Des Moines in 1955 ate lunch with the janitors, not the board. The Knoxville barber trimmed a homeless man's hair for free and talked to him like an old friend, because how a man treats those who can do nothing for him is the truest measure there is. This is number 4, and he passed the test every single day. Number 3, he gave you his whole attention. When a man was in his chair or his conversation, that man had all of him. No glancing at the clock, no mind on the next customer, no eyes drifting to the door. You give a person your complete presence for the time you have them, because divided attention is felt instantly and forgiven slowly. A country doctor in Roanoke in 1955 made a 5-minute visit feel like his whole afternoon. The Knoxville barber made every man in his chair feel like the only appointment of the day, because full attention is the rarest gift there is and the one people never forget. That was his rule too. 40 years, one chair. Attention, wholly given, is a kind of love. Number 2, he let other people shine. He steered the talk to the other man's story, laughed at the other man's joke, and never once needed to be the most interesting person in the room. You give away the spotlight, because a man who must be the center of every room exhausts it, and a man who hands the light to others is welcome in everyone. A newspaper man in Louisville in 1956 could draw a shy man out and make him the star of the shop. The Knoxville barber made ordinary men feel fascinating by being genuinely interested in them, because the gentleman's secret is that he would rather you shine than shine himself. That was his rule too, and the room loved him for it. Number 1, he put everyone around him at ease. That is the whole of it. Every other habit on this list, the hat, the door, the note, the clean word, the kept promise, was only ever a tool for this one thing: making the people around him feel comfortable, welcome, and at ease in their own skin. This is the thread that has run under every minute of this list since the first. Because here is what the old master taught him before he ever earned his chair, the secret the whole code was hiding. A gentleman is not a man with fine manners. A gentleman is a man who makes everyone around him feel at ease. The manners are only the means. A man can know every rule of etiquette and still make a room tense. And a man can break a dozen small rules and still make everyone in the room feel safe and easy and glad to be there. And only the second man is the gentleman. The barber put people at ease the way other men breathe. The nervous boy in the chair, the widow who came in just to talk, the stranger passing through, the poor man ashamed of his frayed collar, each left a little lighter than he came. That is the habit almost no one keeps now, in an age where everyone minds their own comfort and no one tends to anyone else's. It costs nothing. It asks only that you walk into a room thinking of the ease of the people in it before your own. He did it every day for 40 years, and it made a small-town barber the most respected man that town ever produced. Not the cut, not the shave. This. None of these 25 habits required money or education or a single advantage that Knoxville barber did not have. They required only a man who had decided that the comfort and dignity of the people around him were worth 100 small daily courtesies, offered whether anyone noticed or not. The men who lived this way are mostly gone now, and we, who have more of everything than they ever dreamed, walk through our days tending only to ourselves and wonder why every room feels cold. We called their habits old-fashioned and let them go, and lost the warmth folded inside them. But the code was never complicated and never cost a cent. It waits in every man willing to take off his hat, hold the door, keep his word, mind his tongue, and put the people around him at ease, waiting for anyone willing to be, in a self-absorbed age, the rare man a whole room is quietly glad to be near. Do even half of it, and you will not blend in. You will stand out like the last warm light on a dark street.